The one plot I did want to ask about in season 2 is there's the subplot with Lux sort of beginning sort of a romance with the guy who turns out to be one of her teachers.
Yeah.
That was one, I gotta admit, one of my big pet peeves is sort of the student-teacher relationship.
Sure.
Because Dawson's Creek did it, and then it seems like every TV show does it.
Yeah.
But I liked where you eventually went with it, because it was that like a deliberate head fake where you're making us think, oh, it's totally the Dawson's Creek thing. And then it really just speaks to, that's how we're getting to this whole thing about how she was abused.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that when we went in for season 2, we needed to pitch stories that were going to appeal to the CW. And, I mean, the student-teacher story, I mean, just like the guy bursting in at the wedding, those are like kind of tried and true, TV things that work and people lean on. But we kind of, I think it started with us kind of talking about like, okay, let's just throw out the most soapy ideas and, what could it be? What could keep the show on the air? And we threw that out, and then we started dissecting it. And I mean, I didn't watch Pretty Little Liars, so I wasn't aware of the similarities at the time. But what I liked about it so much was, the complicatedness of it, of a girl who feels older than everyone around her. Not just, it's not just that she's, and it's not kind of for no reason. I mean, Pacey and, Tamara Jacobs, I mean, there wasn't like a deep explanation necessarily for why he was attracted to the teacher, other than she was really hot. You know what I mean? It was a fun story, and it worked great, and they totally earned it. But I think what we wanted to do was to kind of get underneath why would that ever happen, and how could that happen, and how could you ever root for it, And I think that was the story we wanted to tell, and we wanted to tell, a story of this guy who was really trying to do right by this girl and really felt a connection to this girl, and then realized where her attraction was stemming from, and being so kind of disgusted with himself and overwhelmed. I mean, I think in Success we would have slowed down that story by a lot and had the entire season to tell it, 22 instead of 13, but at the time we only were picked up for 13, and we didn't want to risk not completing that story for Lux, because we always knew that we were going to get to an abuse story, and we knew we were probably going to have to do it at what felt like the end of our run, because it wasn't going to be a story people were going to be, I don't mean the audience, but I mean networks. When you're like abuse, they're like, like it's not a story people are always psyched about. Luckily though, the CW was super supportive of the story, and
it's pretty dark territory for a show that doesn't have vampires.
Yeah, definitely. And Sally Patrick, one of the writers, she wrote one of the episodes where they go over to the house and confront the guy after a dance, and she always wanted to have the girls in their prom dresses, like Tasha hitting this guy with a shovel. She just loved that image, so she pitched it a lot, and we listened and put it in the show. It was kind of her vision.